Afternoon.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining this meeting, especially in light of what's going on this afternoon. So I really appreciate you being here, your presence here. We're going to go through some slides, but if you can actually mute as Kate has asked, that would be really helpful. So what I'm going to do is start off by sharing my slides. So if we just wait for 1 minute for those to come up. Can everybody see the slide? Is that on everybody's screen now?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So yeah, so we're here. I'm from the Black Heroes Foundation, and we're going to be talking about the story of Claudia Jones. And yes, you can see our website at the bottom there. So thank you for joining us. And on the agenda for today, what we're going to be doing first of all are some introductions, also talk a little bit about the Black Heroes Foundation, and then why is it that we've done this production about Claudia Jones. And I'm going to share with you a live stream recording of the first version of the story of Claudia Jones, and then we'll have a Q&A session. And if you like anything, please do use the emojis and the reaction emojis and clap your hands. Yeah, feel free to put things in the chat box as well. So first of all, what would be really great is if in the chat you can put your name, where you are. So I am at the moment, I'm in Bromley. And also, what do you know about Claudia Jones? Do you know anything about Claudia Jones? So if you could just take a few minutes to answer those 3 questions in the chat box, that would be fantastic.
It must be the whole u3a.
So, okay, so I can see that Di is in Plymouth and she knows nothing at Scratch. I knew nothing about Claudia before. We've got Sue from Seaford, Vivian in Stanmore, Rosie in Fife, Julia in Lincolnshire, Vivian in Crockelhow in South Wales. So we've got a really wide spread of people. Did I see Edinburgh somewhere? Hackney, Colchester. Wonderful. That's amazing. We'll keep pumping those things in. That's wonderful. So with regards to myself, as I've said before, my name is Joyce Fraser. I'm from the Black Heroes Foundation, but that's really just for the last few years I've been working with that. Prior to that, we've got so prior to that, originally in my first life, I was a school teacher. I taught sciences, I taught biology and physics. And then I went on to, I knew nothing about technology. I got frustrated with the education system and left it and went off to do my hobby, which was skiing. I spent a season skiing, then came back and then got into IT and did a postgraduate diploma on marketing and IT, and worked in the IT industry and set up one of the first Microsoft authorized training centers. So I've had a very checkered, different type of career, flitted around doing various things, and ending up in the last part really doing organizational change, leadership development, and lecturing for the Open University in their change management and leadership programs on the MBA program. So that was me. But how did I end up with the Black Heroes Foundation? Well, many years ago, when I was about 26, I met a gentleman called Fraser, and we had this amazing conversation that went on into the hours, and we were talking about the importance of educating our people. And I said I thought education was really important. That's why I was a teacher. And he said that he felt that entertainment and media was the real way of actually educating our people. And I guess he was right. because he went on to be the first editor of the Voice newspaper and also created an amazing theatrical performance called Black Heroes in the Hall of Fame, which went all over the UK and all over the States and everything. Anyway, suffice to say that we did actually get married. I fell totally head over heels in love with him that very first night I met him. He was just an amazing, amazing person. But I never ever got involved with his work because what he did was always too big. You know, imagine having a vision to put a play on, to take it not just around the UK, but all over the States, and to get the recognition that he did. But I always called him arty-farty because I was in the sciences and business, and he definitely wasn't in that realm. Anyway, very sadly to say, in 2014, he passed away. And at his funeral, just hundreds and hundreds of people came. And they approached me and said that I needed to preserve his legacy, that because of the play Black Heroes in the Hall of Fame, they left that performance with their shoulders and their heads held high and proud to learn all this history about them, stuff that they didn't know, and it inspired them to become doctors and lawyers and teachers and all sorts of things. And they said that their children needed to see that performance or to understand the things that he was doing. And I came away feeling really overwhelmed because there's no way I could do that. But going through all of his things that he had done and what he wanted to do, I realized I did need to do something. So in 2016, I actually registered the charity, the Black Heroes Foundation. And that was the name that he'd given a Facebook page that he had created, which had 3,000 followers. And we launched in 2016 in Black History Month at City Hall in London. And so my world has changed. I find myself trying to do funding, setting a charity, getting involved in theatrical things and doing all sorts of things I could never, ever have dreamed that I would do. And that image that you see up there is images from our launch night, which was at City Hall in October 2016. And what we do is we use the arts to celebrate and tell the stories of Black heroes. And I want to show now just a little clip of Flip talking so you can hear some of the things he was thinking about. So this is Flip Fraser, and he's the reason why I'm here really with you guys this afternoon.
Our story is not all about slavery. It was long before slavery. And slavery has long been abolished, and we still have a long way to go. And, you know, the story still has to be told. When I actually came to England as a young teenager. Identity, at that time I think it was more together, you know. We were, you know, we identified with each other, but we didn't really know our history. We didn't really know where we were coming from. We just knew that we were the descendants of the struggle. I mean, but everything I did in my life was always culturally motivated. You know, my whole work as a journalist started out that way, and you know, I went on to be a part of the team that founded The Voice, and you know, I was the first editor of The Voice, and we had a very cultural approach to how we were going to develop that paper. You know, it was going to be our story, right? And moving into theatre is the same motivation. You know, I need to tell our story. Yes, you know, I need to get our story.
He was described by those who worked with him as a man of great vision, a charismatic individual. Flip was well known for his love of reggae music and was also a champion of undiscovered musical talent. He gave many opportunities to many people. He was a proud Jamaican who dared to go beyond what was expected of him. His passing is a great loss to the creative sector, the Jamaican community, and the wider society. Flip will forever be in our hearts.
Black Heroes is really a celebration.
Yes.
And there is no better place to get an inspiration from than from a celebration.
Yes, so yeah, that's some of the information that I found lying around on his laptop that I used for people to put that little short film together. So as I said, we created the foundation, and one of the very first projects that we had was called the Black Hero Soul Food Cafe. And once a month, the last Thursday, we put on an event at a restaurant in Lavender Hill in Battersea. And this next slide just shows one of the events, if it's going to come up. So it's on.
Together for Roland Harris.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Firstly, I just want to say a massive thank you to the Black Heroes Foundation. To be honest with you, this is an amazing foundation, and I'm blown away by how much talent and how much vigor and how much energy is in this room and how much we can achieve together. So please do support this foundation, please support this night. I'm going to play 2 songs for you, and I hope you enjoy them as you munch on that good food. Enjoy. 'Cause I wanted you away. Now I got you, I can't let it go.
Roman Harris there. He turned up that evening because we had open mic. He turned up that evening saying that he wasn't performing, he just come to see what was going on, but he did have his guitar at his back. And that's what he stood up and did, so incredible. Another recording I want to share with you is Kofi, who is just singing, honouring Etta James. So those are just a couple of bits of the things that we do. And you may ask, okay, Joyce, I'm here about Claudia Jones, on why Claudia Jones. So, well, I never knew anything about Claudia Jones once upon a time, believe it or not. And what happened was, in our second year, we had a fundraising event back at City Hall. It was the year of the Women's Centenary. And what we did was to send out surveys to people asking who were there, women of colour that they wanted to nominate as being London's great women of colour. And so we sent out this survey and then we got these results back. So
2 years ago, in this very room, we launched the Black Heroes Foundation. So I'm so excited to be back here this year, celebrating our 2nd anniversary at City Hall. And also in the year of 100 years of emancipation of women getting the vote. So we are actually celebrating London's black women and what they've achieved. Some of you may have looked at the exhibition around to see some of those women that we're going to be discussing later on. You'll have a programme on your table, and in that programme you will see that we've got inside pages where we talk about people who have been nominated.
Basically, we had an exhibition at City Hall, but when we did that and got those results, there was a word cloud of some of the people we had coming in. A lot of them, all of them I knew, but there's one person here, Claudia Jones, that kept coming up, and I'd never heard of her. I didn't know who she was. So I decided to do some research on it. And I was blown away. I was so moved that I just kept thinking about her and doing more and more research. And eventually what happened is that I'd gone away and I decided that I wanted to write a play. I'd never written a play in my life, but I was so moved by this woman that I wanted to write a play about her, which is what I went and did. Let me just ask you a few questions here. Put the answers in the chat if you know. Where was Claudia Jones born? And when was Claudia Jones born? She went to New York as a child. How old was she when she arrived in New York? And under what circumstances did she arrive in London? How did she manage to be in London? And does anybody know where she's buried? And does anybody know the name of the largest street party in Europe? And have you ever been to it? So let's see if we can get some answers to any of those questions in the chat. I don't see anything coming in the chat. Okay. Yvette, no, hang on. Okay, so Bob, Yvette isn't born from France. I'm showing my age, but I saw the first production of Black Carriers in the at the Hanging Empire. Oh, fantastic, Yvette, that's fantastic. Yeah, amazing. It was its home. We called it its home. And Bob says Notting Hill Carnival, and he's been fantastic. And Yvette, yeah, she's born at Highgate Cemetery. She was born in Trinidad. Brilliant, excellent. So we've got some people here who know a little bit about Claudia Jones, which is more than I knew when I got all those names coming up in the survey. So anyway, I did all this research, and as I said, I was blown away by what I saw. And it inspired me to write my first ever play. Remember, I come from a science background, a business background. I don't consider myself to be a creative. But I wrote this play, and lockdown started. And I managed to get some funding to put it on from Wandsworth as part of the Wandsworth festival that they have every year. But we had lockdown, so it meant that we ended up doing rehearsals on Zoom, and there's a live stream. So what I'm going to share with you now is this live stream of the first version of the story of Claudia Jones. So the first thing I discover is that Claudia is buried to the left of Karl Marx. So there must be more to Claudia than Carnival. I think she must be a very special lady. So guys, are you ready to meet Claudia and hear her story?
Well, gosh, I remember when entering New York, the loud bellow of the ship's horn, everyone clambering on deck to see our arrival in this great city of dreams and hope.
Come on, everybody, and get your baggage. The ship's about to arrive.
The Statue of Liberty standing resplendently tall with her crown of gold. I never dreamed that I would later be incarcerated on Ellis Island. And with that, in full view, a lie, a statue of no liberty, a statue of oppression and injustice. Anyways, going back to my arrival in New York, I was so in awe, so excited. I squeezed Daddy's hands and I looked up at Mommy. Our dreams were about to start, or so Daddy said. But I was worried. I mean, what was I going to see? Who was I going to meet? What was it going to be like? But Daddy said that the walkways are paved in gold and that our troubles would be over and that we would be rich, happy, and healthy.
So Claudia and her family moved to Harlem, New York. They were excited and full of hope. But alas, their dreams weren't as anticipated. They were in search of work, as so many Caribbean families were. They were unwelcome immigrants in a hostile environment. They were poor. It was hard. Life was tough. But Claudia was in a loving family, and she was bright, and she just loved school.
New York wasn't the land of hope and glory that Daddy promised, but I love school. I just love learning. But oh, how I missed my home. This bitter cold, the first time I saw snow, I thought it was so pretty. But I soon learned that not all that glitters is. Anyways, things were not as we expected. I was missing the warmth of the golden sunshine bathing my skin, and the palm trees swaying through the bright blue skies. And the ripe, sweet fruit that I could pluck from the low-hanging arms of the tree. I got home from school one day, and Daddy told me that Mother was sick. The last time Mother was sick, we were all tested, and I tested positive for tuberculosis. I rushed into her room. It was dark and the curtains were closed. Mama was propped up on all these pillows, her head sweaty and trying to smile. Her eyes glazed over and her mouth cracked and her dry lips quivering in an attempt to turn upward. This time Mama really looked sick, and I was frightened. My mother passed away that night, and I can still hear Daddy's crying. I thought my heart was gonna burst. I was just a teenager.
Abide with me, fast falls the eventide, the darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide.
My mother had survived 5 years in this brutal, cruel, hostile environment of New York City. And it was the death of my mother which led me to develop an understanding of the suffering of my people and my class, and to look for a way to end it.
To be continued. Claudia left school early. She was an active communist. She worked with the likes of Paul Robeson and C.L.R. James. She was arrested many times and incarcerated during the period of the MacArthur era. she was deported. They wouldn't have her in Trinidad. They considered her to be too much trouble. So she was sent to the UK and arrived in London in 1955 as an undesirable alien. However, in the UK, Claudia continued her activism, setting up the very first Caribbean Carnival in King's Cross, also founding the first West Indian newspaper for her community, the West Indian Gazette. Claudia also worked alongside the Windrush and World War II veteran Sam King, and they opposed the 1962 Commonwealth Immigration Act, the root of today's hostile environment and Windrush scandal. Claudia lived for another 9 years in Britain, and she died at the age of 49. She died on Christmas Eve. And I'm going to read to you now the reading on her headstone. On her headstone to the left of Karl Marx, it says, Claudia Vera Jones, born Trinidad, 1915. Died London, 24/12/1964. Valiant fighter against racism and imperialism, who dedicated her life to the progress of socialism and the liberation of her own black people. I salute Claudia Jones, mother of the Caribbean Carnival, founder of Britain's West Indian Gazette, great orator and campaigner for human rights, one of London's great women of colour. She earned her space to the left of Karl Marx. Truly a very special lady. And today, the Notting Hill Carnival takes place in the shadow of Grenfell Tower. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for joining us this evening for this short play. That is the first time we've actually performed it, and it's just the first act of the play, so we really are looking forward to your feedback that you give us to help us progress it further. Anybody who wants to be involved with us, please do put your details in the chat. But I want to thank the people that have worked along with me, because I wrote this just at Christmas, and I met Danai, and she'd never acted before, and she has done an amazing job in taking this on and performing it this evening. And I also want to thank Moji, our director, because she didn't know who I was, and she's taken us under her wing in order for us to put this performance on tonight. And when I wrote this little play, it was intended for the theatre, for stage, and we've had to adapt it. We're running it online, doing our rehearsals in Zoom, so it's been an absolute adventure, and I'm so pleased that so many of you managed to join us this evening. Okay, so that was the first version of the story of Claudia Jones, and I'm pleased to say that we did get further funding, and we had a fuller version of it, the full version of the story of Claudia Jones, that was presented during June of this year as part of the Windrush celebrations, and we were sponsored by Wandsworth Council and the Wandsworth Libraries, and we put it on in 4 libraries in June, and 160 school children came to the library and saw the play, which now has 3 actors as opposed to 1 actor playing at the various roles. And it's such a rich story, and 1 actor actually plays 12 different roles in the play. And in fact, what happened is that the Battersea Arts Centre had seen it, and they then invited us to perform it as part of the Wandsworth Arts Fringe Festival the last Saturday. And so we had it on at Battersea Arts Centre. And there is the High Commission of Jamaica saying a speech afterwards, and we did a Q&A session. And so what's happened now is that we've been invited to take it to the Canada Water Theatre. So on the 15th of October, for one night, we're at Canada Water Theatre, where we're performing another play, another performance of the story of Claudia Jones, which I hope you may be interested in joining. And I'm going to now ask you the quiz again, and let's see if you can answer these questions. So in the chat box, please. So where was Claudia Jones born? When was Claudia Jones born? Under what circumstances did she arrive in London? Where is she buried? And what is the name of the largest street party in Europe? And have you ever been to it? So you see, the teacher in me just cannot get out of me, can it? So let's see if we can have some answers in the chat box. And let's see how many you get right. Forgot. I've got a few. I've got a few. I'll put the answers up and you can just see. So she was born in Trinidad in 1915. And when she moved to New York, she was aged just 3. Her father went first ahead of her, leaving her and her sisters and her mum behind, and then they followed on. And as I said before, she was imprisoned numerous times during the McCarthy era. And she was deported to London as an undesirable alien. And in fact, she would have loved to have gone back to Trinidad, but they wouldn't let her go back to Trinidad because the governor of Trinidad deemed her to be too much trouble. And yeah, she's buried to the left of Karl Marx at Highgate Cemetery. And she was the founder of Europe's, or the precursor to Europe's largest street carnival. She didn't actually set up the Notting Hill Carnival. Her carnival, the first carnivals that she had were actually indoors. They were in the month of January, and they were indoors in the Paddington Town Hall. But a couple of years later, it inspired the Notting Hill Carnival. And she set up those carnivals, those indoors ones, because of the riots that had been taking place in Notting Hill at that time, to try and just bring some brightness into people's lives. And also some of the funds they got from that, they used to help people who were being prosecuted. And Paul Robson actually actually performed at some of those carnivals that she had. She worked very closely with the likes of Paul Robson. And when Martin Luther King went to collect his award, he came via London and actually went and had afternoon tea with Claudia. So she was very well connected in her day, but most of us don't know her story, but she's had quite an important impact on British history. So I hope you found that interesting and useful. So I'll just say a little bit more. We do all sorts of things at the Black Heroes Foundation. We go into schools, we go into libraries, we put on things in theatre. We have meetings for the elders as well. And it's all about telling those stories to everybody, because everybody needs to know our history. And this next slide is just showing you, during a Windrush Week as well, we put on an exhibition at Battersea Library about Philip Fraser. It seems to be clicking on to the next slides without me telling it to go. Why is it going into auto? Very strange. So that's just an audience that we had in June on a Saturday afternoon. There was a train strike that day, so I'm amazed that we had so many people come to that. And this slide is just, we were doing some work with some children, and we were filming. And this young boy, he's outside his school, and quite an oppressive looking environment, I thought. But he was very proud of his school, because it's the same school that, I forgot his name. Anyway, I'll come back to his name. The great rapper, Bonds, oh, can't remember. It was the same school that this other person went to. Anyway, just off the cuff, I said to him, why are you doing this work with us? What does Black Heroes Foundation mean to you? And this child was about 13 years old.
Black Hero gives them that voice. It's like a light in a room full of darkness. They have that outlet to go and express their emotions and feelings. We're in like a trusted community where everyone understands the pain that they're going through. I feel like it's really great to have something there.
And that background music I was playing there was actually done by that person as well. And this last slide I just want to end with, and then we'll have a Q&A.
Our story is not all about slavery. It was long before slavery, and slavery has long been abolished, and we still have a long way to go. And you know, the story still has to be told.
So that really is my kind of sharing stuff with you. And now I open up for questions. So have you got any questions that you'd like to ask or put in the chat box?